Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are, based on your time zone. Today, I will be discussing the internal produce cholesterol versus food intake cholesterol risks. So, I'll be taking very small minutes. So, stay to end to understand the difference between internally produced and the one we get from food. So, the metabolic balance. Understanding the source of your cholesterol risk is the first step in managing your cardiovascular risk profile. So, the source comparison, let's compare endogenous, meaning 80% of the total cholesterol, which is produced by internally by the liver, vital for brain function, hormone synthesis, and structural cell integrity. Whereas the exogenous, meaning the one we get from the food, it accounts about 20% of the total cholesterol and obtained through dietary intake like animal products like egg, meat, cheese, all those kind of things. This is the wild card that disrupts the balance because we have naturally produced cholesterol, and if we add excess cholesterol from food consumption, then that's the time when the disruption will happen. Okay, so the internal regulation, the liver life cycle internal regulation mechanism, when you see this one, the liver maintain a basal level of cholesterol 24/7. It produces what your body needs to manufacture bile, which is essential for burning fat, and hormones and cell membrane. So in a healthy individual, this internal life cycle is highly efficient and responds to changes in the environment through complex feedback loops. So why food is the variable? So there are reasons why the food, the one we are getting, the risk of cholesterol, the one we are getting from food is high, is that one, no shut off. The digestive tract absorbs what you eat without the same precision as the liver production feedback. So if we continue consuming excess cholesterol from the food, there is no feedback we're getting from our body saying that, no, stop here. No, there is no such mechanism. So if we continue consuming in excess, that's the time we'll be at risk. The other one is the genetic trait. Hyper-responder experience severe blood spike from even a small amount of dietary intake. So, as already discussed, the liver will produce enough amount of cholesterol that is required to maintain cellular regulation, which is very essential and important. But there are individuals who do have genetic problem. So in those individuals, if we continue consuming even a small amount of cholesterol we consume from food, it may result in blood spike. So the other one is the bundle. Dietary cholesterol usually comes packed with saturated fat that sabotage liver sensor. So because of these three reasons, the food variables are very important that need to be considered. So the body thermostat. So hemostatic regulation, your liver monitor blood cholesterol like a thermostat. Monitor room temperature. When intake increases, production drops. Meaning if we continue consuming food with a high cholesterol, and then the liver will sense that and it will drop the production, the internal production. Risk arises when the internal factor like saturated fats blind this sensor. You know, one of the issue why we need to focus on saturated fat, I'll discuss this one in a separate video, but when we consume saturated fat, it misleads our liver sensors, causing the thermostat to stay on even when the blood is saturated. You know, like it's mistaken or it cheats our liver mechanism. So we'll continue consuming, and the liver also will continue producing cholesterol. So when is the real culprit? Saturated fat disruptor. So saturated fat found in processed and fried food. As you can see on the right side of my slide, there are food which are a source of saturated fat, and there are food which are very important for our health. Look, the down-regulate LDL receptor is the liver. When these receptors are inactive, the liver cannot see the cholesterol in the blood, leading to massive overproduction and plaque buildup. So when we consume saturated fat, then, as I said before, it's blind the liver, meaning that the liver will not sense the excess amount of cholesterol within our body system. Then it will continue producing, and then in the end, the result will be overaccumulation of low density lipoprotein, and that will finally build up to create plaque in our blood system. Okay, relative LDL impact. So the dietary cholesterol, it accounts about 5 to 10% risk. But when this is received from saturated fat intake, and then the risk will be high, significant. It will be somewhere 20 to 30%. And when someone already have a genetic problem, then the impact will be very critical. The risk will be very, very high. And average impact on serum LDL level based on the intake and biological factors. So we need to think that the cholesterol risk is a combination of these two. But always the one we are getting from food should be the one easy to regulate, adjusting our lifestyle. So we need to focus on that one. Okay, liver toxicity, NASH. Beyond heart attack, previously we were thinking that high cholesterol will result in heart attack and stroke. But now, new clinical research suggests that excess dietary cholesterol is directly toxic to hepatocytes, liver cells. So, unlike the internal production, external intake can lead to accumulation in the liver tissue, triggering inflammation and scarring and potentially NASH liver failure. It will result in liver failure. Okay, the risk matrix. So comparing the internally produced and the one where we obtain from food, when we see the regulation, the internally produced one is highly regulated. It has internal feedback loop, and the one we are getting from food is passively absorbed, and it doesn't have internal body regulation mechanism. And mitigation. So if there is a genetic risk, the one internally produced, it's totally depend on medication. And if someone has a genetic risk, should take a statin. And the one we get from food, lifestyle adjustment and fiber intake will solve the problem. And the primary risk, the internally produced, is genetic dysfunction, and the one we obtain from food is saturated fat toxicity. And verdict, balance is essential, and disruptive and variable. Okay, the daily lipid cycle. Okay, so there is an ingestion, dietary fat entered to the blood system, and then the fast state, liver maintain basal serum baseline, and then the liver will liver sense detect the surplus spike, and then it adjusts internal synthesis dial down. So when we consume food, then as the liver function is maintaining basal serum baseline, and then it will sense. Then once it's the liver able to sense, if the liver is in a good function, and then it will sense, and then it will adjust the internally synthesis one, so to regulate the one we consume from food and the internally produced one. Okay, the final verdict. Food obtained cholesterol carry more risk as it disrupts precisely balanced internal system. You know, sometimes, as already discussed specifically, when we take saturated fat specifically, it blinds our liver function, and then it carries the high risk, because the internal one, unless someone has already got genetic risk, and then the liver, it will regulate the internally produced one. But if we add cholesterol, high risk cholesterol specifically, more saturated fat, then it will increase the risk. And then sometimes when someone has a genetic risk, the risk will be very complicated and it will be very, very high. Thank you so much. That's all for today. Next time I will come back with a similar video, and please don't forget to subscribe my YouTube channel to get similar information. Thank you. Good day.